Ryan Hawk, welcome to the Mindset Advantage. I've been looking forward to this conversation for quite some time. Thanks for being here today.
I appreciate you having me, DJ. I'm looking forward to it too.
You have a phenomenal book called The Score That Matters: Growing Excellence in Yourself and Those You Lead. I'm not sure where I saw the book, but what I remember once I saw that title, it drew me in. I was like, I got to know more about the score that matters. For the listeners that haven't yet gotten the book, and after this conversation, you guys are going to want to grab this book. What score really matters, Ryan?
The appropriate title actually probably should have been The Score That Matters Most, I think. There's really two scoreboards in life, an internal and external. I think external is really about the society's definition of success, whereas an internal scoreboard is your own personal one, and I think it's personal for everybody. What the issue is we don't all do the necessary work to clearly define our what success means to us and what matters to our internal scoreboard. So we try to just lay out what it means to have a purpose, to have core values and critical behaviors that align with that purpose so that you can create prompts for yourself to say, am I living by the score that matters most to me, not necessarily by the score that society says what success is. And so that's the fun part about that is it's a never-ending process. It's really hard. It takes a lot of rigor, but it's certainly worth it to, I think, get on that path. And hopefully our book helps with that.
And I think the mistake that athletes will make is that if they don't take the time, Ryan, to do this, they're going to float through life and maybe they get to their 20s, 30s, 40s, who knows when, and they kind of realize that that external scoreboard doesn't have fulfillment. And we maybe get to the end of life and realize, oh man, I might not have been, I put the ladder on the wrong building. So can you walk me through a little bit? We're going to get into some nuances and some awesome stuff here, but what are the first kind of steps into understanding what your inner scoreboard could be? I mean, you said the question of, what does success look like to you? That's probably a great place to start. Where else do you like to start with helping people define what their inner scoreboard is?
It actually reminds me, DJ, of the story of how I met my co-author on the book, Brooke Cups, about 8 years ago when he asked me to speak to a group of leadership students he was teaching at Centerville High School. And I went and spoke to them and quickly learned that Brooke was the type of person who was as comfortable in his own skin as anyone I'd ever met. Just the way he carried himself and the way he showed up in the room and how like people just revered him and had deep levels of respect. And as I got to know him more, I realized that he had done the hard, necessary work of establishing the foundational elements of himself and his core values, which are tough, passionate, unified, and thankful. And that he lives out those core values of being tough, passionate, unified, and thankful every single day. And that's really the foundation for his life. That's how he measures his purpose. That's how he measures personal success. And so to me, like I then really attached myself to him and asked if he would help me define what my core values and my purpose and the critical behaviors to match those core values would be so that I could live more intentionally, more purposefully, and hopefully help other people along the way. And that's what's happened over the past almost decade now. And towards the end of that decade together, we decided that we should document a lot of the stories from our time together, as well as the people that we try to help and the people that we're learning from, because it's a never-ending process, as I said before. So really it's just about getting intentional about the foundational elements of you, which I think are your core values and critical behaviors, and understanding your purpose, like why you're here, what you're trying to do, and who you're trying to impact. And that I'm not there, but I feel like I'm in a much better position today than I was a few years ago.
What the scoreboard has to do with some sports here. Why is this so important for athletes to be able to define their inner and outer scoreboard?
Well, I mean, in sports, the scoreboard does matter. Like if you're going to play, you might as well win. It's not like that we don't care about winning, and certainly as my co-author Brooke Cups has done a ton of winning on the external scoreboard too. We just firmly believe that if you get all of the internal stuff right, then the rest takes care of itself, and you can almost surrender the outcome. The outcomes, though, seem to have gone much better for both of us and lots of other people who have gotten the internal scoreboard right. And so once they get those values, understand the behaviors to make those values true. They have necessary prompts for themselves at the end of each day to say, "Am I living in according to those?" It feels like everything else takes care of itself. So the world now is really it's very easy to play the comparison game to other people. There's a lot of tools, apps, social media, different things out there that make it very easy to compare yourself to other people, to feel very bad about yourself, to get disillusioned and not understand like what are you trying to do or who are you trying to impact. And so if you're not careful and if you're not purposeful and intentional, you'll just kind of follow what everybody else is doing and value what everyone else is doing if you don't get clear on who you are, what you're about, and what you value. And so really that's what we're trying to do. It's just trying to help people get very clear on those values and then live in alignment with them. And again, like I said before, it's I think it's really hard, and it takes being intentional about it every single day.
It seems like, this concept, it's whether you're 10 years old or 90 years old, this could really have a major impact, on people's lives. And at 31, reading your book, I'm like, man, this is so great. And I kept thinking to myself, right, I wish I knew this at 16. I wish I took the time to know my ethos and go through some of these things. And now at 31 years old, I'm working with a lot of 16-year-olds. So I travel the Midwest talking to high school student athletes on how to use their mindset to their advantage. And so my question is a little bit selfish for you, but how do you, and maybe you can speak to as being a parent here, right? How do you get kids, teenagers, young athletes to really get on this inner scoreboard train? What does that conversation look like? Any pieces of advice when talking with that demographic specifically?
I think there's a lot of envy, especially with kids that age. I mean, there are for adults too, but it's very easy because kids live on their phones. If you just kind of hover around a teenager, which I do from time to time as a parent of teenagers, you see what they look at and what they do, and it's usually like I remember a couple of days ago, daughters are hanging out, and one of their friends said, "Why is everybody in Florida? What's going on in Florida? Is everybody on vacation?" Like this kind of envy of the fact that they were missing out. And I picked this up from Lawrence Yao recently that I think we try to help kids, we try to help adults eliminate envy. And this is what Lawrence said when I was reading his work. He said, "Envy is inversely correlated with self-examination. The less you know yourself, the more you look to others to get an idea of your worth. But the more you delve into who you are, the less you seek from others, and the disillusion of envy begins." So we're trying to help people remove envy from their life. Um, it's a natural feeling for us to be jealous and envious, but we can get better at that. It's a skill to dissolve that in our lives. And I think it's really hard for kids to do it, but the more they examine themselves, the more they get clear on who they are, their purpose, their values, their behaviors, the more envy goes away. And so the more you know yourself, the less you try to be somebody else. And I think a lot of people, if we're not intentional, you don't do that work. Brooke and I just did a workshop yesterday with some very high level leaders that have accomplished a lot. And so we kind of thought, like, I wonder if our stuff is going to be new or even helpful for them, because we kind of assume they'd already done all this stuff. And we get in there, as you probably know, DJ, from working with people, none of them had done any of that work before. And so we made a lot of strides, and I think got a lot done in just one day from doing what now seems foundational and basic and just normal. But it's not. It's not normal. It is for us, but it's not necessarily for everybody. So it's really about just making people aware of that, and then maybe giving them a nudge to push them along to do that work, and to know that that work never really ends, and to be okay with that. In fact, to embrace that fact of it, that you can keep working on it to keep getting better. That's what we should be striving for.
I like this concept. I think I heard it from Michael Gervais, who I know has been on your show and mine as well. He talks about how we can't control the world around us, but we can control the world within us. And when we look at this whole
Yeah.
like mental performance journey, Ryan, it really, what I've learned a lot recently is it has to start within. I have to know myself really well. What trips me up? What bothers me? What works for me? What doesn't? What does it look like when I'm performing at my best? What doesn't it look like? The more I can get to know that, the easier it can be to help lay on skills and some of the fun, visualization, whatever it is. But it first has to start from within. One of the quotes from your book that you say is, in order to take your values beyond words on a page and make them real, the first step is to identify the behaviors that help you live them. I think one mistake could be working with a team, organization, or student athlete is they get these, 3 to 4 words. They're flashy, they're cool. I'm like, I feel good about them. But then they stay on this piece of paper. So walk me through that quote about the first step to identify the behaviors that you help them live. So walk me through how it goes from on the page to in life.
Yeah, I mean the behaviors make it real. So the values don't. I mean, they don't mean a ton to me. The words. I want to create action from those values. I'll walk through mine if you want, and the critical behaviors that are aligned with my values, and I think that maybe brings it to life and makes it more practice and less theory, because we learn who we are in practice, not in theory. And I think that is important to think about, like, how do I make this real and concrete? So my core values are thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent. And that's great. Those are good words for me. Okay. What's more important, I think, are the critical behaviors that go with each of those values. So my critical behavior to go with the thoughtful value is seeking to understand. And so that's a prompt I can ask myself at the end of each day if I'm living out my thoughtful value is, what did I do today to seek first to understand rather than be understood, right? Comes from 7 Habits. But what did I do? How did I live that value? Write down examples. That's a journal prompt for me. My second value, being thankful, is leave it better. Leave people, place, and things better than I found them, is the longer version, right? So what did I do today to leave the people I interacted with better, to leave the places I interacted with better, to leave the things I interacted with better? So that could be all the conversations I have today. How did I leave each person I talked to better, right? Whether it was 30 seconds or an hour. The places I went to, did I see trash inside the gas station where I went to fill up at lunch today? And did I pick it up and throw it away, or I just look at it and walk by, right? If I look at it and walk by, I'm not living in alignment with my thankful value to leave that place better, right? Sounds little, but this is a big deal. These are prompts I ask myself at the end of each day. Curious, my third value. Pushing my edges. What did I do today to push my level of competency? Who did I speak with that's far wiser than me, that forced me to lift my level and to learn, to grow, to improve? So pushing my edges is my curiosity value. I can ask myself, what did I do today to push my edges? And then consistency for me means show up. So how do I show up to give maximum effort with a great attitude every day, right? That's what consistency means. I'm not going to win with brilliance, but I can win with endurance. So while I may have been born with some skills and some talent, not enough just to wing it and randomly show up from time to time. I got to show up each day with consistency, with a good attitude, with good effort, being overly prepared. And if I do that, I got a good shot. So that's the prompt, the question I can ask myself is, did I show up with those things today? And that's living out the consistency value. So if I ask myself each of those prompts for each value at the end of each day, and I have affirmative answers for each one, probably a pretty good day. And if I keep stacking those days, day after day after day, I like the odds of things going well for me, right? And so we are just trying to help other people get that clear on what it looks like for you to name your values, but more importantly, name the behaviors that align with each value and create prompts for yourself to ensure you're living them out each day. And if you do that, I like your odds. I think things are going to go well if people do that. And that, though, is the harder path. It is much easier just to wake up, go through your day, kind of wander around, hope for the best, and then go to sleep at night and do the same thing. That's easier. It takes less. I guess it's easier because you don't have to think as much. You don't have to be as purposeful and intentional, and you can just kind of go through it. And I guess that's attractive for some people. Those people probably would not be into the stuff that I do. And that's okay. That's okay. I don't think our stuff's for everybody, but I do think if people are into this and they want to commit to it, I like their odds of things going well for them.
I couldn't help but think of the word alignment when I'm reading your book, Ryan. And it's this sense of fulfillment when, and for some people, I think for everybody, it's at different ages or seasons of their life when they feel that alignment where my inner voice matches my outer voice. I am who I am at home. I am who I am everywhere else. There's consistency there. Talk to me a little bit about that, man, because I think there's something about it feels damn good when you live in alignment with your values.
Yeah, I mean, we asked a question yesterday. I remember, like, why do people choose to follow you? Why would anyone choose to follow you, right? Because you're not really a leader if nobody's following. And I think part of leadership is it's creating more leaders, but there is a follower element there. And I think one of the key reasons that people choose to follow others is because they see that that's an authentic person who knows themselves very well, and they're not trying to be somebody else. My background is in sports. Yours is in sports. My younger brother, we talk about this all the time. He's a professional athlete for 11 years, and we talk about coaches that we played for who were authentic versus the ones who were not. And the great coaches knew themselves, knew their philosophy, knew their program. They weren't trying to be somebody else, right? They learned from others, but they understood themselves. And so I think like authenticity and self-awareness are at the kind of one of the central points of why somebody would choose to follow you. Well, if you're not in alignment for what you value and the behaviors to make those values real, it's tough to be as authentic and aware as you could be. So if you're trying to become a type of leader that inspires others, that creates people to follow you, you got to be in alignment with those things, and that makes you more authentic, more aware, and that creates followership. So that to me is everything, man. That really is. If you don't have that, you don't really even know who you are. And if you don't know who you are, how can you authentically show up each day for others to say, okay, yeah, I want to follow DJ, or yeah, I want to follow him. If you don't know that, I think you're gonna struggle until you figure some of those things out.
So going back, this is awesome, man. I'm loving this. So going back to inner and outer scoreboard, a lot of what the inner scoreboard could be is, how you treat others. I mean, how you feel about yourself. I mean, a great question is, at the end of your life, what matters most to you? And oftentimes, it's not state championships. It's not the big house. It's not, some of those financial pieces. It's relationships and how we treat other people. And there's a quote by Dr. Jim Lair, one of my favorite people on earth. He's been on the show a couple times, and he says this, that the blind pursuit of external achievements often results in emptiness, addiction, and ironically, poor performance. And then he also says that the most important thing is who you become in consequence of the chase. The most important thing is who you become. And the one in your book I love so much from Jack Rains, it's in a similar sign. It says, the focus on outcome over everything leads to us discounting 99% of our lives for the sake of a few small fleeting moments that might provide some sense of satisfaction before that cycle begins anew. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of wisdom in there. Can we talk a little bit more about what that means? And the most important thing is who you become, not what you require or acquire.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about the process of it's not necessarily about like reaching the top of the mountain. It's the person you become in the process of acquiring whatever the thing you're trying to acquire. It's not about winning the state championship. It's about the people you become in the process of winning that state championship. The outcome is great. Like I said, if you're going to play the game, you might as well try to win. But that's not really what it's about. It's about the people you're becoming along the way. I also think of the Hassan Minaj quote about this when somebody said like, "Oh my God, did you dream of making it? Did you dream of like of this?" He said, "No. What I dream of is the fact that I get to go on stage tonight at 7:30. The work is the win. There isn't some external fame or fortune or something I'm striving for. The work is the win." And so that's how I view what I'm trying to do, and what I hope a lot of people are trying to do, is that your work is the win. Like the process of doing the thing is the win, not some sort of championship or trophy or dollar amount or object that you're striving for. It's the actual act of doing the thing. So I realize not everybody's going to have this job where they view it as like that work is the win. Like some people are just searching for financial security and what that could bring. I get that that's part of life. But to me, like I'm striving for living a life where the work continues to be the win, where the reward for great work is more work. And that's like the fortunate position that I'm in right now. And I want like one of the biggest motivators in life for me is just I have to keep getting better at it in order to get to keep doing it. So that to me is really what that's all about. It's the person you're becoming, certainly while it's going on, but then enjoying the actual act of doing the thing that you do. Like how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. So why don't we like try to spend those days in a way that are enjoyable, are doing things we want to do, are positively impacting the world and other people. I know that sounds a little woo woo, but to me, like that's kind of what this thing's all about, man.
Yeah, I love that so much. It seems to me too, depending on where you are, who you are, but I would say generally speaking, we live in an outer scoreboard world. And I'm curious,
Hmm.
I want to speak, I would love to speak to like the parents, right? So, parents listening, they're like, hey, that's cool. I like this idea of an inner scoreboard. But yet, sometimes those are the people that are promoting the outer scoreboard more than anybody else to their young student athlete. What's the advice to a parent, Ryan, to help promote, if you will, the inner scoreboard to their young student athlete? What does that look like?
I mean, I think it's the basics which you've probably heard are to me, and I tried to live this out, are what is actually within your child's control. There's actually not a ton of things, but their attitude is within their control. Their effort is within their control. And so it's not just about telling them that, it's after the game is over or after the practice is over, is praising attitude, praising effort, praising the things within their control. Same way with schoolwork. One of the examples of this that we try to live by is when you get the report card, there's the section that the teachers leave little comments. They write comments about your children. And that's always the first part of when we're sitting down going over report cards with kids is we're looking at the comments from the teacher because usually
Cool.
they'll write about attitude, effort, being kind, helping other students, helping their friends, being friendly, right? The things that I think are most important that and are within their control. We'll talk about grades too, and we'll talk a little bit about outcomes, but we're focused almost solely on when your teammate got knocked down in the second quarter and you ran over and picked her up. That was a great moment. Like that was being a great teammate, right? When all of a sudden the other team is sprinting down, look like they're going to score a goal, and you hauled it, gave it everything you had to go stop them, and made a great tackle to stop them from scoring. That was awesome, right? That was maximum effort. That's what we're all about. So it's like thinking and finding examples of great effort, of great attitude, of being a great teammate, of being kind. That's what we're trying to reward, as opposed to saying I'll pay you $20 if you score a goal. Or and I know I have friends of mine that do that. I love them. They're not bad people. I think that's praising the outcome. That's praising. I believe the wrong thing. I think the goals or the outcomes will come if we continually focus on effort, on attitude, on being a good teammate, on being a kind student, at helping others. I think if you do that and you consistently focus on that, it seems like the other stuff takes care of itself, and it usually does.
I think another like just tactful strategy is, some parents right after a game, the first thing they'll say, Ryan, is, did you win or did you lose? And it's like, well, if that's
Right,
what you're asking me first, that's what's most important
right.
to you. And I'm not saying it's not okay to ask that question, but maybe don't lead off with that question. Maybe kind of trickle your way into that. As you were talking, I couldn't help but think, Ryan, would you agree that the internal scoreboard perhaps leads to the external scoreboard? What I mean by that is if I get really dialed in on the external, then those things on the sorry, if I get really dialed in on the internal, the things on the external are going to start to come my way. But I can't do it in reverse. It has to be internal first, external second. Is that making sense?
100%. I mean, I get, I've gotten a little bit of criticism about the fact, like, don't you care about winning, or doesn't winning matter? I'm like, of course it matters. Like, if you're a coach and you lose too much, yeah, you'll get fired. But I use, again, back to my co-author, Brooke Cups, I use him as an example. I mean, he's been a tough, passionate, unified guy since he got to Centerville High School. And Centerville High School is notoriously a football school, had never won anything in basketball, not at all. And they've gone to 4 consecutive Final Fours and won a state championship. Centerville had never been to a Final Four before Brooke Cups and Eli Liker got there. And since Brooke and Eli have been there, they've won everything. Literally, they've won it. They've won everything. And so but he'll tell you that was because they surrendered the outcome. They never set goals on winning a league title, winning a regional, or winning a state championship. That's never been one of their goals, right? Their goal when they won the state championship was attack every opportunity with purpose. That was their one team goal, and they measured themselves every day if they attacked every opportunity with purpose. And so, to me, you're 100% right. Like, I've seen it. Like, we've seen it lived out, and they're currently living this out. That if you get the internal stuff right, it seems to take care of the external stuff, but it doesn't usually work the other way around. And that's why we have pushed this and will continue to push this probably for the rest of our lives.
You've mentioned a couple times this is a lifelong pursuit and it's not always easy. So my question for you then, Ryan, would be like, why is this so hard for some people? Like for some people, it's a lot easier. Maybe for folks like you and I defining this inner scoreboard, maybe it comes a little bit more naturally. Ryan, why is it so damn hard for some other people?
Well, it never ends, right? People like to have a project end, or how long is this going to take, or what do I have to do? When we say it never ends. Like, you're never going to arrive. You're always going to be becoming, right? That JJ Redick quote that lives on. Okay, so that's part of it. It's people in general would rather not do this introspective work to actually look at yourself and to think of who you are, what you're about, what's your purpose, what you value, and then how do you consistently live out those values. It's much easier to do what I said earlier in our conversation, which is to wake up, kind of go about your day. It doesn't make you a bad person, by the way, to live that way. I have friends that do that and they seem good. They're fine. But I think this path to excellence is really about being much more intentional each day. And when I think of the 590 plus people I've interviewed over the past 9+ years on the Learning Leader Show, if you ask me commonalities of those who have sustained excellence, they're so purposeful and intentional, first and foremost, about themselves, leading themselves, doing this necessary work all the time, never ending hard work on themselves. And that's what's led them to have these massive impacts on the world and other people. But that's hard. It's much harder that way than it is just to kind of wander through it. And I think our brains are almost wired, as Michael Easter probably says in the Comfort Crisis, and what he writes about every week, is we're wired to be lazy. And you have to be intentional to not be lazy. And most people don't do that work, or they don't want to do that work, or maybe they start it and they're like, oh God, dude, I don't want to do all this stuff. This seems like a lot. And is it really necessary? And you also don't get short-term rewards. Like, you're not going to get instant gratification from doing this. It's a long game play. And so I think you got to be okay with delaying gratification for this type of thing in order to keep doing it. And again, that's another area where a lot of people struggle is being able to delay gratification. So there's a lot that goes into it, but I guess those are the first few things that come to mind.
Yeah, I love it, man. I want to talk a little about professional athletes. I had a chance to have dinner with a professional bowler, and we were talking a little bit about this inner and outer scoreboard, maybe in kind of some different terminology, Ryan. But one of the things about this really good bowler was that he's one of the best in the world, but he hadn't won a title yet. So he's always known as this guy that I'm one of the best in the world, but I don't have the achievement yet. And I'm going to strive to get that so I can get the monkey off my back. I can get media off my back and stop saying that I'm the guy that doesn't have a title yet. And we talked about how that title, it's out of your control and it's more that outer scoreboard. And so if I parlay that a little bit with also your brother, I'm in Minneapolis, so I'm a Viking guy. I've watched your brother play for many years. At that level, when your life is dependent, in air quotes, on the paycheck and how you perform, the stakes are much higher that way. Walk me through what's the relationship like, the conversation like. Maybe you have an example from your brother, I don't know, or perhaps this bowler. But when when your paycheck is determined on whether you are sticking around next week or not, how do you have that conversation of, hey, that stuff doesn't matter, don't worry about the outer scoreboard?
Well, no, it does matter. I mean, I think your performance does matter. It's all of this work on him, in this case, understanding what he's about and his values. I think most notably what AJ was good at is one of the things that's a part of our family DNA is consistently showing up for himself and for his teammates, and being reliable and dependable, and everyone trusting that he's going to be where he's supposed to be. So these are all core values of his. These are values that he lives out each day and lived out each day of his professional career. Again, that I think were cemented in us from our upbringing, from our mom and our dad. So what made him and what continues to make him good are these unsexy qualities that are very valuable, especially if you're part of a team. He's now a part of a different team working with Pat McAfee, and a very important member of that team that plays an important role. And he has the exact same approach to that work as he did when he was a professional athlete, of being very consistent, of showing up, of being dependable, of taking red-eye flights to make sure he doesn't miss a Monday show when he wants to also be somewhere else, of not missing his kids' own stuff because of other work obligations. Like, all these consistency, reliability, dependability things, all of that leads to your performance. And so whether it's playing sports or being a part of another team outside of sports, I think your values are your values, and whatever it is they are, you bring those to what you're doing. And in AJ's case, he's been really the same guy since he was very little. And those values and those traits and those behaviors have led him to do really big things in multiple life categories, which is pretty cool. I certainly think he's going to have a bigger impact post NFL life than during NFL life. And I've said that since he was playing, and I think people think that's crazy, but right now it's looking like that's going to be true. So to me, that's because of the person he is and how he shows up each day and the values he lives by, not necessarily about like God-given talent or anything like that. He certainly has some of that, but it goes beyond that, and taking his own kind of style to whatever the job happens to be.
What I like about what you're saying, man, is you're not. It sounds like, Ryan. Correct me if I'm speaking wrong here, but it sounds like you're not discrediting the outcome. You're like, hey, man, that is a part of it. Like, wins,
Oh
losses,
yeah.
tackles, like that is a part of it. I can't just ignore it or get rid of it. That is a part of how we determine how much you get paid, of course. But I'm gonna be very intentional about how much intention or attention I put onto that, because I think that's a distinction too. There might be some coaches out there that say, just forget the outcome. Don't worry about the stuff. Don't worry about any of that. And you're saying, well, let's hold on a little bit. It does matter a
Well, I
little.
mean, if you're playing a game, like you're competing, you're playing a game. Well, yeah, we want to win the game. Like, we want to win the game, and we believe all of our work leading up to that is going to put us in the best possible position to win the game. So, yeah, I'm not anti-winning or anti. I mean, we grew up in an insanely competitive household, and I think that helped make us good at whatever it is we were doing. Sports, outside of sports. And so competing's good. Competing's healthy. I think it breeds excellence. Like, there's some good elements of that. I'm saying, like, this inner scoreboard will put you in a better position to win whatever the thing is that you're doing. And if you're going to do it, yes, like, we're going to strive and go as hard as we can to win, but we're not bypassing all of the important foundational work that will give us the best possible chance to win.
Yeah, I love that. I'm curious if you're able to get a little vulnerable here. I'm wondering, Ryan, if there's a time in your life where you found yourself living that outer scoreboard life, and if so, if you're willing to share, what was that like, and perhaps what was the turning point for you? Maybe either to realize it or maybe somebody told you. Do you remember a moment in your life when you were living outside instead of inside?
Well, I mean, so my athletic career led me to view the world as very zero sum and very, if I, in order for me to win, everyone else has to lose, or if you win, that means I lose. So I played quarterback in college, and I played quarterback my whole life. And when I went to college to Miami University, I'm in the same recruiting class as Ben Roethlisberger. We played the same position, and we battled it out for 2 years. And after 2 years, he wins the starting quarterback job. The late great coach Terry Hepner, sat me down and said, he gives us a better chance to win than you do. So you're either going to have to move positions or accept the role of being a backup. I liked neither of those options, so I elected option C, which was transfer to Ohio University, and gave myself a chance to start for 2 years, be a team captain, and then play after college. And to me, when you're in that zero-sum world where if he wins, I lose, or if I win, he loses, because only one quarterback gets to play, what happens is that left like a mark on me that took years and years to almost unlearn the fact that that's not actually how the world works. In fact, the world is the opposite of of how the quarterback room. The quarterback room is a very unique place that is not necessarily or not even at all relatable to the regular real world. With what we do, I think if I help you win, we'll both be better for it. You help me win, we'll both be better for it. There is plenty out there for all of the stuff that we do. Plenty of people to buy books and hire us to speak and to buy ads on podcasts and you name it. There's plenty. The world is abundant with opportunities. And so to me, like more scoreboard, outer scoreboard was the world is zero sum. And if since he won, I lost. And then when I went to the next school, I won and everyone else in the room lost because they didn't get to play, right? Or my 4 years in high school, same thing. Or when I played arena football, when I won, the other guy lost because he didn't get to play. But then you go out in the real world. And when I was a sales rep, I remember at LexisNexis, it took me years to get rid of that zero-sum mentality because I was figuring some things out of how to do really well in the job. And I'm being asked by senior leaders, hey, run a training, hey, mentor other people, hey, help others, share your secrets, share what you're doing so the whole team will benefit. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I see the stack rankings. I'm competing with everybody. I want to crush everybody else. I want to win rep of the year. I want to be the number one guy. And it took me years to say, you know what? If I want to be a leader, if I want to positively impact the company or my team, yes, I should be leading trainings. Yes, I should be mentoring people. And if I help others, it will only help me. And so eventually I got there. I matured a little bit. I learned and became, I think, a pretty good team player. And after mentoring, after helping others in team meetings and training sessions and trying to share what I was doing, I got promoted to manager, and I got promoted to be a director, and I got promoted to be VP of sales after I showed that I could be a team guy and try to help other people. So I had to like unlearn this zero-sum world of the quarterback room into the actual real world that isn't like the quarterback room, which is the more I help other people, the more good things are going to happen for me. And I think that's more inner scoreboard because I think most people or everybody's purposes should stem from how you're positively impacting other people. And if you're hoarding everything or you're not sharing or you're only competing and like trying to push others down so you can be lifted up, that is not a healthy way to live. That is an external scoreboard thing. And so to me, that was a process that took years, but I feel, it was probably necessary to go through that, but now I can look back on it, I can say, okay, that was a process, but I think I'm better off for having gone through it because I've learned from both the good and the bad of it.
Would you agree that oftentimes the outer scoreboard is more me over we, and the inner scoreboard is more we over me?
Probably, yeah. That probably makes sense because I think your purpose, again, my purpose is to inspire others to value and pursue excellence. And so I think that others component is a massive element of like, why are we here? It usually involves how you can positively impact other people. I think if we're helping people write their purpose statements or understand why they're here. And so that's much more we over me than me over we.
Somebody that I think that does a great job at living to their values and understanding the score that matters is Scotty Scheffler, the golfer, and he talks a lot about golf
Oh
is
yeah.
golf is what I do. It's not who I am. And as a mental performance coach, that's one thing that I really try to emphasize with young student athletes before it's too late. And I've talked to, guys like Eric Wood, who just left the NFL. And that was one of the things he talked about was understanding, what I do is not who I am and having a strong identity. It goes back to really the genesis of this conversation, Ryan, is how well do you know yourself and making sure that you're not, glommed into, hey, what everybody else knows me as this player that plays on Sundays. This is what I do. Can you touch a little bit about on how identity plays a role? And maybe if that quote hits with you as golf is not what I do, it's not who I am. How does that have to do with the inner scoreboard?
Yeah, I mean, Scotty seems like, and it's funny that he also is winning more than everybody else. Now he's very competitive too. You can see he's got that fire. Like he's a very competitive guy, but it feels to me like he has an amazing comfort in his own skin. Just watching him, seeing when he holds now his son and his wife comes out on the greens after he wins. it's like this guy just seems like he knows himself, what he values. He's very centered. He's very grounded. He seems very normal. You know, you hear him talking about his Chipotle order and how he asked for double chicken. Like all that stuff is very relatable and normal. It like oozes of like this guy knows himself. He understands his purpose. He understands what he values most in his life. And yeah, he works really hard and he happens to win a ton. But I think a lot of it probably comes from that. I don't know him personally, but I think that is like he's one of the great examples of knowing himself, so that when he goes out and plays, it looks so freeing. Like even watch his feet and the way he swings. He doesn't do it the way a lot of people like how a coach would tell you, but he's comfortable enough in who he is and the type of guy he is. He just goes out and lets it rip. And it just so happens the outer scoreboard is lit up by Scotty Scheffler because I think of his inner scoreboard seems so dialed in.
I could hear like a media member or a naysayer, somebody negative say, well, it's easy to live the inner scoreboard when everything's going well. When you're the best golfer in the world, it's easier to be that inner scoreboard. Ryan, what would you say to something like that?
Well, I mean, Rory McIlroy is another guy, if you want to stay in the golfing world, who's very big on his process. He's very big on stoicism, big Ryan Holiday fan. I was just in Austin talking to Ryan about him and how he is very dialed in. Rory's, he hasn't won a major in a while. Still won quite a bit. He lost. It seems like he missed a couple of putts to lose the U.S. Open. So he's one that people could potentially criticize him for. I think he's an inner scoreboard guy, and yes, he hasn't won some of the big events, but it feels to me like he is in a constant state of working on himself, and I think that probably has benefited him, even if the wins haven't come in the events that he wants. So. Yeah, I don't know how I'd say to naysayers like that. I mean, I guess, with anything that anybody chooses to do, you're going to have people that talk, but that's why we wrote about too, like your foxhole friends and those 3 a.m. friends and those people who are closest to you. I mean, ultimately, those people who don't really know you or what you're about or don't love you, it doesn't necessarily matter what they say. Like sometimes I guess you could pick up some things by listening to that. But for the most part, I'd rather keep my foxhole, those people that truly care about me and love me and are willing to speak up and tell me the truth. That's who I'm really focused on, feedback from those people much more than anybody outside of that circle.
Yeah, I love thinking about, what's preventing people from living this inner scoreboard life, Ryan? Because to me, it's like, it's so obvious. Like, why aren't you? I don't get it. But I think as I dive a little bit deeper, I stay a little more curious is I think one of the reasons that people have a tough time getting into the inner scoreboard world is because they're not surrounding themselves with the right people like you're talking about. The people around them are constantly talking about the outer scoreboard. And that's so hard to get out of it if your circle is talking about the outer scoreboard. You have a tremendous story of Jim Collins and talking about the people you surround yourself with. And I think that ties perfectly in with what we're talking about, surrounding yourself with people who also value the inner scoreboard. Would you mind telling that story?
Yeah, I mean, so I had been trying to get Jim Collins on my show for years, and a lot of starts and stops talking to his team. Got interviewed a few times. It eventually happened, episode 216, and yeah, I was obviously nervous. I was meeting my hero, and I was talking fast, and I was telling about this is what I'm doing and how I'm going about and why I'm doing it, and he just kind of hit me right across the face and said, your who will be the single greatest determining factor in your long-term success or failure. Who will be your friends? Who will be your spouse? Who will be your mentors? Who will you intentionally choose to surround yourself with? That's what's going to be the difference for you. So do you have that dialed in? And I thought I was okay at it, but then I realized like I hadn't been very intentional about who those people were. Like they just kind of randomly happened based on where I was, that the people who were there, and I just kind of connected with them as opposed to being more intentional. And so I just kind of broke it down after that conversation into 3 different columns for myself of ahead, beside, and behind. And I wanted to get more intentional about building deep, meaningful, mutually beneficial relationships with people who are ahead of me. That's people who have perhaps done what I'd like to do, but more importantly, they've done it in a way in which I deeply admire. So who are those people ahead of me? Beside me are people who are maybe on a similar path, maybe a similar age. I'm not sure. But two rules with those people beside me. One, it's a judgment-free zone. We can have conversations with those people, and we're not going to judge each other when we mess up. And we're also deeply and truly rooting for each other to do well, not secretly envious or jealous, but we're actually rooting for one another to do well. I'm rooting for them. They're rooting for me. And then behind me is like, who am I teaching? Who am I helping? Like, it's just the right thing to do to help those people who maybe aren't as far along as you are. But two, putting yourself in the position of being a teacher is one of the greatest learning tools that exists. If you want to learn, teach whatever you're learning to somebody else, whether you're giving a speech, writing a book, working one-on-one with somebody. Put yourself in the position of being a teacher. When I work with senior leaders, that's one of the questions I ask them all the time. When's the last time you've been a teacher? When's the next time you're going to be a teacher? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, sign up to lead training at your work. I don't lead trainings anymore. I'm a senior leader. Well, other people lead trainings. No, you're going to lead a training. You need to be teaching. Like, who are you mentoring? Who are you teaching? Because that's gonna one, help other people, but it's also gonna help you, because you're gonna learn through clarity of thought, through figuring out what you actually believe when you're gonna go teach that to somebody else. So ahead, behind, I think it was a turning point for me after speaking with Jim, and I've since talked to him a few more times about how important that is. And when you look through his books or you look through like his life, I mean, it's just riddled with stories about the relationships that he's built with these amazing people. And I think that's been one of the keys to him living such an amazing life, and currently living an amazing life, is the relationships that he's built.
Yeah, that's so what prevents people from living the inner scoreboard is, they're not surrounding themselves with the right people. Another is that you said that they're not clear or intentional. In the book, you talk about, I love the strategies, man. I love taking away, hey, go do this. And I love about, if you're not clear or intentional, if you're thinking about yourself, like, I don't consider myself to be that, you say, hey, here's the solution, write your eulogy. No, go ahead, sit down and
Yep.
write your eulogy. And it was like, dang. I mean, if you want some direction, seriously, not don't just think about that as you're listening right now. Like, actually go do that, because I've done that, and it changes the way you think, man. I mean, that's a powerful exercise to create some intention in your life.
Write it in the voice of the person you actually think would read it. So I have my youngest daughter reading it. Hopefully, it's a long time from now. But when I write it, I write it in her actual voice, and that makes it very real, of like how you show up in their eyes, and like, okay, what do I actually want to do? So you write it, I think, in an aspirational tone of like what you'd like to do, and it's almost all about the relationships you formed, the people you've impacted, the difference you made, and how you've helped people. I mean, that's really what, if you write it for real in the voice of somebody that you love, and so you write it, and now I'm in the process of trying to live that. And that's hard. Like, it's a challenge. I didn't write it to be like just okay, or to not impact people in a positive way. Like, you write it in a way to really positively impact people. And so now it's the process of trying to live that out. And so that's why I think that's a useful exercise for people to use.
Super useful. And now you have the document. So like, you have the directions to the destination. It's right here in front of you, that you know how to follow it. There's another one as we kind of wrap up here, a couple other strategies here. We're talking about writing letters. I love this one because I've done it with some athletes, and I also saw it this year at the College World Series. I don't know how much you follow college baseball, but Texas A&M and Tennessee both did this leading into the final game. They had, I don't know if it's each coach or the program or ESPN, but it was, write a letter to your younger self. So these guys are
Yeah.
18 or 23 years old, and they're writing letters to their self at 12, like, hey, I'm sitting in the stands right now. Tomorrow I play in the College World Series. And I tell you what, Ryan, man, watching it got me emotional, because it was like, man, what a cool moment for you to be able to do that. So we're talking about writing your eulogy. Now talk to me about the power of writing to a letter to your younger self.
Yeah, I think at like a basic level, it's a reminder that when you look back, you think that there were these moments that like were crushing, or that were gonna completely knock you over, and you couldn't find your way through them. But when you look back at them and you write a letter to yourself about them, you realize like they were obstacles or they were moments, but you're okay. Like you're fine. And so what it helps, I think it helps bring perspective to is you're going to have those in the future. It's probably going to be okay. You stay true to your values and the behaviors, like it's probably going to be okay. And so it just brings a different perspective on challenging moments. And in fact, we write a thank you letter to adversity, which is similar to this. That's another exercise we do with leaders where you actually write a thank you letter to the adversity that you faced in your life.
Oh, cool.
And so one, because that adversity it really makes you who you are, right? Fighting through things like think about a good movie. There's tension, there's adversity, there's conflict, and they find a way through it. If there wasn't, then it wouldn't be a good movie. And so Pat McAfee talks about this. And when I recorded with him for episode 500, he said, like, I try to view life as a movie. And the tough moments in life make the movie more interesting. And so it's hard when you're in the adverse situation, like in real time. But if you can pause for a second and thank that adversity, it's not necessarily realistic, but it kind of is. You can realize like this is actually going to make the movie more interesting. If something is a small scale, like I was flying on spring break with two of my daughters last year, and our flight got delayed a lot, and then the flight got canceled, and like we had to find a new airline. Like it was one of those types of delays. And what I couldn't believe when one of my daughters said, "Well, this will make the movie more interesting," and I
Wow.
was like, "What?" I mean,
Cool.
that because like obviously try to talk about that. We try to say those things. We try to live out that value of like what do most people do when your flight gets canceled, right? You just complain or you yell at somebody and you demand that they fix it or whatever instead of just saying, "All right, we're gonna find another flight. We'll get there." Right? This makes the movie more interesting because it creates a cooler story a year from now when we reminisce about spring break, whatever. And so I just think that also makes you probably a more enjoyable person to be around
Mhm.
if you look at adversity as making the movie more interesting and you're living your life as a movie. Not that the stuff isn't hard and there aren't real life tragedies that we have to deal with, but like we know that's an inevitability, right? Adversity is going to strike. So I just want to put myself in the best position as possible to handle it. And I think those exercises, writing a eulogy, writing a letter to your younger self, writing a thank you letter to past adversity, I think all those things can be helpful exercises to better handle the adversity that you're going to face in the future.
That's cool. I got one more, and one more thing I think prevents people from living in alignment or living that inner scorecard is that comparison. And Michael Gervais talks about fear of other people's opinions and always looking out for external validation, if you will. I'd love for you to close down with the story of the golfer with your time with Rob Riggle. I think this was very crucial about what it looks like when you look somewhere else and how it can affect you. So I won't take away the punchline, but talk to me about why that is the comparison problem.
Yeah, the summer of 2023, we're in Lake Tahoe. My brother and I go to he plays in a Lake Tahoe American Century celebrity golf tournament every year. We've done it for 15 years. I've caddied for it every year, and so you get to play 3 rounds, a practice round, and then 3 actual tournament rounds. And you're paired up with random celebrities, and everybody brings a caddy. And on this particular day last year, we got paired up with Pat McAfee and Rob Riggle, and Rob's caddy well, I later learned was his girlfriend, Cassia Kay, and they met actually when Rob was hosting a TV show called Holy Moly, I think it's called, and Cass was a contestant on the show because she's a professional golfer, and she looks the part. She was actually wearing, she made it herself, like bib, like bib, caddy bib that you're caddying in Augusta National at the Masters. It was really cool. She's an amazing woman. You could tell, like, knows her way around the golf course. Like, Cass is just great. I just saw her again a couple of weeks ago because we just got back from Tahoe. So it's fresh on my mind how great she is. So anyway, I think it was the ninth hole. And I noticed that as AJ was teeing off, he was going to tee off. Cass was like aggressively looking at Rob with 2 fingers pointing to her eyes, telling him, "Look at me, look at me, look at me." And I thought it was kind of weird as AJ was like getting ready to take the club back to tee off. And he kind of turned his head to look at her. And because like a lot of people like to watch AJ drive a golf ball, he's won the long drive contest there multiple years. He absolutely annihilates a golf ball. He hammers it and hits it far. So it's fun to watch. But swings very hard, hits the ball very far. And so as we're walking down the fairway, I said, Cass, like you were like really aggressive with Rob there about like getting him to look at you, like what's going on? Like I literally had no idea what she was doing, and they seemed kind of odd. And she said, I don't want Rob watching AJ swing. And I said, well, why? And she said, well, Rob's a little bit older than AJ. AJ's a professional athlete. AJ swings super hard. And when Rob overswings, he just cannot hit a good golf shot. Like he doesn't hit the ball straight. He won't square up the club face. Like it doesn't go well. I don't want him watching a swing speed like AJ's because it's way faster than his. I need his tempo to be better than that. And so if watches him though, his body will speed up without him even realizing it. And if that happens, then he won't hit a good golf shot. I'm trying to help him as his caddy. I said, wow, that's fascinating. I'm like, well, you're a pro golfer. What do you do when you're playing golf? And she said, I either look straight down the fairway or I talk to my caddy. I don't want to change my swing speed either. And if I watch somebody else who maybe has a faster one, I'll speed up without even realizing it. And I just thought that was an amazing metaphor for life, that if you're watching somebody else's swing, you may speed up your swing subconsciously without even realizing it. If you're comparing yourself too much to other people, you may start doing things that don't make any sense without even fully realizing it because you're spending too much time paying attention to somebody else's swing instead of your own swing. And so I just think it's a great metaphor for life of let's focus on my swing first and foremost and keep my attention on that. And if I get that right, everything else will probably take care of itself. But I thought that one really brought it to life, and it just so happened to happen in beautiful Lake Tahoe while we were playing golf.
Yeah, man, what a great story. Ryan, this was a lot of fun. I like to send my listeners out with a call to action at the end of every episode. So you've given so many pieces of wisdom and strategies. If we were just to boil it down to one question here, question being, if I like this inner scoreboard, Ryan, this is great. I want to start doing this. What's one thing I can do today to start living in alignment or to start living this inner scoreboard? Because it sounds great. What would you tell that person?
Establish your core values. What are those things? What are I mentioned mind, thoughtful, thankful, curious, and consistent. Brooks are tough, passionate, unified, and thankful. What are yours? Just write them down. Get your first draft done. At the end of this podcast, get your first draft done. One of the ways that helps with that is you can ask, we do this exercise where we have people text the people that know them most, like, when you think of me as a leader, what are the qualities you think of, right? Just to see what you get back. That could help you, like, we want you to create a word bank initially and then narrow that word bank down to 2 or 3 or 4 values. So start with the bigger word bank and then try to narrow it down. Because if you value everything, you value nothing. So you got to eliminate even things that are important. Like, for example, integrity is very important to me. It's not one of my 4 core values, but certainly I want to be a person of high integrity. But it just so happens it didn't fit into my 4 to be in there. So whatever it is for you, create a big word bank, get others to help you who know you and care about you and love you very much, and then try to whittle those down to 2 or 3 or 4 core values and get your first draft done of, like, what am I trying to do? What are the behaviors to live in alignment with those values? I think if you get that part right first, and you could either get help from somebody else or do it on your own or in a small team. If you do that, again, you're like, I think you're getting your foundation set to live by an inner scoreboard. And again, we think if you do that, it seems to take care of a lot of other things in your life.
Ryan, this was awesome, man. Just from getting to know you for the last hour, it seems like you are, you speak, you walk the walk, you talk the talk, man. So all the stuff that you talk about with your core values, they line up exactly. And I don't know you very well, but I can just see it right through you, man. So congrats on the work you've done. This book is phenomenal. You've got a couple other books, but how can my listeners best support you? The floor is yours.
Thanks, man. Learningleader.com is the home base for everything for me. So my podcast is called The Learning Leader Show. The books were written based off of things I've learned in my life and certainly from podcast guests. And the recent one written with Brooke Cups, The Score That Matters, is a combination of a teacher and a student talking to each other and sharing stories and exercises to help you actually like implement this stuff. So I appreciate your support and the fact that you've read the book and you obviously have done your research, DJ, and I want to acknowledge the fact that you have that great combination of being a really active listener, which is obvious, as well as being very well prepared. And I don't take that for granted. And so I'm deeply appreciative of you, man, for doing all that work. This doesn't happen by accident where you make it sound and look easy, because it's not, but the good ones make it look like it is. So thank you for doing that, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, that means a lot coming from you. Ryan, thanks for your time, dude.
Thank you, man.